Everybody, welcome to another episode of Gimmicks or Gold. Today we've got 17-year-old Paolo, who is from Cambridge in UK, and he shared something on LinkedIn recently about how to grow your LinkedIn audience for the purpose of driving more sales pipeline into your funnel. And I'm just super curious to hear about his specific instances, case studies, things that he's found to work, and also just curious about his background in general. But I'm not going to speak on that. I'm going to let him speak on it on his behalf. Paolo, thanks so much for joining us. Tell us a little about yourself.
Thank you, Chris. Thanks for having me. So it's basically I run two businesses. So I run an agency which helps software companies and high ticket service providers, B2B service providers really scale their offer on LinkedIn. And then I run a software company which I launched 25 days ago, like first of the month. That's basically an AI LinkedIn ghostwriter. So something that we built internally to handle our client work and stuff like that. And then I just decided to outsource to release it to the public. So this month I've kind of been pushing that a bit more, but we've scaled software companies. Like some of our best case studies are with software companies where only through LinkedIn organic traffic, literally spending $0, we helped them hit like 24K MRR in 70 days. Um, yeah, just booking hundreds of demo calls per month, completely organic through LinkedIn, and also a little bit of Twitter as well on the side.
Got it. Cool. Yeah, we'd love to dive into, let's just go jump right into it, right? So why don't you tell us a little bit about your background, right? Like, how did you get involved in this world, being somebody who's 17 years old? Like, when did you start? Were you starting to do this stuff at 14, 15? What piqued your curiosity about this space? Just to kind of understand some context around your experience with B2B sales and B2B SaaS.
Yeah. So I mean, I think I started just like getting into just overall wanting to make money online and live that by seeing people with those nice lifestyles as young kids, the gurus. It was probably through social media where I was first introduced to it, and then I slowly started to delve deeper. And last year, probably middle of last year, or no, two like 1.5 years ago, I basically started an agency probably a few months before. I was just testing different business models. I wouldn't really say I started anything. I was just kind of planning, like I ran a few ads for drop shipping products. Um what else did I try? I mean, I tried like YouTube, I tried TikTok, YouTube Shorts, and I had that shiny object syndrome, they call it, and I was just jumping from shiny object to shiny object. Then I decided to just stick to an agency. Originally, it was more focused on providing like automation services and AI solutions, but I don't come from a development background, so I wasn't really able to sell people on high ticket packages. That kind of failed. But what happened is I was using LinkedIn content to drive traffic to my offer, and I realized, okay, I'm way better at this than I am at creating automation. And this can be super valuable, especially with the rise of people wanting personal brands and founder-led marketing and things like that. So I decided to offer it as a service. And then since then, we've kind of just scaled up, taking on a few different clients in a bunch of different industries. And then last month, I just launched the software company. And yeah, I mean, I kind of got started from social media is the short answer, just seeing other people.
Got it. So it was just this. So it started off, I guess you're saying, is like chasing more of like a certain lifestyle, seeing, and that was like the original goal. And then you kind of experimented, it seems like, and then you try to offer something through LinkedIn as your primary channel of biz dev for that, but you didn't have the domain expertise. And you ultimately realized that you were good though at driving attention towards something, even though you weren't able to sell whatever that was because you didn't have the experience in it, right? So it's like, so you found what you were good at ultimately through a bunch of different types of experiments around different offerings, it seems, right? And
Yeah.
so you then figured out LinkedIn, what you were great at figuring out how to get attention through LinkedIn. And then you started offering that as your service. Is that kind of the shorthand of it?
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah.
Okay. So walk me through like what does that mean? So you figured out that LinkedIn, you're good at getting attention through LinkedIn. And then how do you go from like realizing that to then developing an agency? How do you get your first few clients, right? And like, and what does that actually look like? Like, what does that mean in terms of what you are actually offering them? And then how are you guys measuring success?
Yeah, so I'll kind of break down how we got our first clients, and then I'll go maybe more into
Sure.
what we provide and some of the strategies so you guys can get some value from it. So first clients, I mean, I just basically I took my whole profile, revamped my whole funnel to then push to this LinkedIn. I wouldn't call it a ghostwriting agency. I would call it more like content-led lead generation because like you said about what metrics we track successful, we're not tracking, obviously impressions are great and we're going to consider them, but those don't pay the bills. So we're actually going to track the meetings that we book, the leads that we generate, the qualified leads, the demo calls, and then also customers. But when it comes to customers, it also does depend on the actual service that you're
Sure.
providing in your sales process. But the metrics which LinkedIn has complete control over is pretty much the qualified leads being generated through the platform. And then I guess if you are selling a software, then customers can apply. But if you're selling something where you have a whole sales process and sales team, then it can be a little bit different. Where I got my first few clients, it was pretty simple. I just revamped my profile, revamped my funnel, and then I just drove traffic to that like I was doing before. But in this case, it's kind of a self-serving proposition. So
Sure.
I'm basically driving leads for myself in the way that I'm generating leads for other people. So when I hop
Sure.
on calls with people and they tell me, okay, how do I know your stuff works? I can just tell them, hey, look, we're here right now. So you being here right now is proof that the funnel works. So it really became a self-serving proposition. Initially, I was still booking a bunch of meetings. I wasn't as good at sales. I'm still improving. I'm still learning. I've got a mentor who's helping me with some sales stuff. So I I just ended up actually being able to sell with more conviction because I knew that that was something that I could get results for, and the conviction just increased as I was getting more case studies. I proved to myself I can do this not only for me but for other people as well, and then I just kind of was a spiral upwards from there, I'd say.
Okay. Um, I mean, talk me through kind of like because I mean, I've been doing this for, you know, 10, 12 years now, like in terms of like the growth space, and I've seen a lot of different evolutions. I kind of know what you've been going through. There were these hacky tools, 7 years ago where not everybody knew about them, and if you were able to dive into it and learn it, you're able to offer, this ability to kind of help generate meetings. But obviously, like, yeah, there isn't a lot of control. You don't have a lot of control over like how they close, but you can hopefully increase their pipeline. That being said, I guess like, you know, how was like how did you start getting the conviction to know that you could do this for other individuals, let alone other companies, in the very beginning? And like, I feel like I went personally, I'm just gonna speak about myself, but like I went through a period of like, imposter syndrome of like, do I actually know what I'm doing? Is it actually helping them? Like I'm getting them meetings, but are they actually able to, monetize off of that? I had a lot of like second guessing in the very, very like early days of going through that. Walk me through if that's kind of like, how did you go through the steps psychologically of like having the conviction of like, I know what I'm doing, I know that's getting results, and I can do this confidently.
Yeah, I mean, I think it was probably just from, well, initially I didn't have as much conviction. I mean, I knew I could do it for myself, but like you said, you in the early days you usually have a bit more imposter syndrome. I mean, I know people still which are more successful than me that kind of experience similar things, but it's it's just a matter of me speaking to more people, sending more cold outreaches, just closing more clients. And as I got more clients, I saw these people go from like complete zero. They just came to me, they're like, hey, I need this to work. And then we scale them up all through our traffic. And then from there, it was really like, okay, we're doing this. I can do this. I start to get a bit more confidence. And then after I kind of use a similar playbook over and over again, and it keeps working. Obviously, it's personalized to each company and
Sure.
the person's experiences. But as I keep doing that, I start to realize like, okay, this is super good, and I start to see other people in my space, my competitors, which maybe they have more followers than me, maybe they have, a bit more likes than me, things like that. But I started to realize like I can't really name people, I can't really name anyone, or I couldn't find anyone that was getting the same results as us, and that's when I knew we really have something on our hands, which is like pretty fantastic. And I don't know how long it's gonna last. So like you said, there's different cycles. I just want to take advantage of it for as long as possible right now.
Pretty honest. Um, interesting. So I will say, kind of like going through your, going through your profile, kind of seeing the content that you've been posting, right? Like, I think that, and I don't know if this is your age or maybe it's and don't take this the wrong way, but maybe it's the naivete of it. But like there's a fearlessness in you doing this where it's like it's almost like you don't have a lot to lose, right? Like you're on LinkedIn, you haven't done like 10 years of corporate experience somewhere where you have like a facade to uphold, right? So I almost feel like which is this is an interesting perspective, because I do feel like a lot of of the bigger ticket kind of customers for you, let alone just on LinkedIn. Like those are all like my world of people are like the people that have 5, 10, 15 years corporate experience and then maybe decided to jump into entrepreneurship. But in those instances, there's a lot of psychological fear around judgment, and that prevents them from being consistent, but also creative, and then also pushing the envelope, which ultimately is the stuff that moves the needle with the algorithms across any social platform. But I think like it's kind of becoming clear as to why some of these things might work for you. Is almost like there's no real fear of like trying different things. And then, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, and then it's also like the fact that you're consistent, which I think is like probably just stems from the fact that you're hungry and you're like ambitious and you're young and you're like, yeah, I don't know how long this is going to be. So you're going to be on this hustle for as long as you can. And that's kind of probably like the biggest two bottlenecks for some of these older people that need to leverage LinkedIn, but then there's that like gap, which then starts making sense to me, because all I'm trying to figure out is like, how is this working for you? But that being said, why don't you talk us through like a little bit about, yeah, some of the things that you found to work. And even to me, it's like also just as important to figure out the things that don't work, right? Because at the end of the day, you don't need 100 things to work. You need one out of 100 to work, right? And so like, what's been some of the things that you thought were going to be hits that maybe didn't work out well? Because maybe that will help our audience shortcut certain things, versus some of the things that you found to be extremely successful. And of course, use your own discretion as to what you want to share. But personally, I've found that the more that you share, the better, because it just builds trust. And at the end of the day, 99% of the people aren't going to do it themselves anyways. And so they just go hire the person. But open to
Yeah,
your
I
thoughts.
mean, I'm very like open. I've made plenty of YouTube videos like breaking it down all in like a
Sure,
massive Miro board. Like I've made documents which I give away. I think yeah, value first for sure. And like you said, I don't care. Like people could go to my LinkedIn and copy it. They could go to my clients, they could copy it. I really don't care. I think also there's enough space in the market for
sure,
all of
yeah,
us. So basically, and just on your point before I get into like the strategies,
sure,
I think well you're kind of right when you say that I don't have much to lose. I think initially it's kind of something where you see it as more of a game, and I
yeah,
see it more of something where it's I'm setting myself up for the future. Like that was kind of my thought process. Like I know I don't want to work a normal job. I know that I want to have more freedom, so I'm going to set myself up now so that I can be less stressed in the
yeah.
future. I
Which
think
is such an interesting, dude. It's such like I'm thinking about it and it makes so much sense. Because I see like you gotta understand, like I'm in my 40s and and I've gone through and I've gone to tech later, but like yeah, I've gone through learning all these different types of tools. I'm deep in learning a lot of these workflow automations like N8N and Make and stuff too, like trying to understand what actually can provide real value. to companies, right? Versus like what's just cool, right? And I think like, or what looks like a cool automation, but it doesn't really like, tangibly deliver results. I like the fact that you talked about like, yeah, impressions are cool, but like, yeah, there's no like tangible outcome from that. Hopping on a phone call is tangible outcome, hopping on a video call, right? So, um, yeah, sorry to cut in there, but like it just makes sense as like why 17-year-old now can like find shit that works on here. And I feel like that's such a revelation that probably a lot of these my peers or colleagues probably don't think about, and probably why they should be talking to more people like you.
Yeah, I mean, recently, I think people are starting to realize that young people understand these algorithms and these social medias a lot more than just the corporate people simply because they spend more time on it. And
Yeah,
when you really are like more of a consumer, you understand from your own experience, okay, what am I clicking on? What grabs my attention? And at the end of the day, it's like basic human psychology principles. You can tie LinkedIn hooks down to the old newspaper headlines, stuff like that. But I think young people just consume this stuff a lot more, so they sort of understand the algorithms a lot more. And I can also dive deep into how the
sure,
LinkedIn algorithm actually works. But yeah, my final point on why I think also it has worked for me is because like you said, I mean, there's not really any consequences for me if it goes badly, so I can just keep going. I guess that's also a double-edged sword from what I've noticed,
sure.
because sometimes I'm not as hungry, I don't have as much drive because I know that I have a backup plan. Actually, I recently dropped out of school, so now that's no longer true. But when I was in school, it's like, okay, if worst case, I just go back to being a normal kid.
I mean, before we go into the strategy stuff, I'm curious, it's like, what does the normal kid mean? Like, what are your, I don't imagine every single kid your age from Cambridge is doing the same shit as you're doing. Why do you think you're doing it versus again, your friends or your peers, the same age as you? And what are they doing? Like, what are they doing that's different from you? And why do you feel like you are so focused on this?
I mean,
I
I
love
think
it, by the way. I think it's awesome. Like, I think it's awesome. It's fucking cool.
No, I appreciate it. I appreciate it. I think some people have different goals, and some people also aren't as they don't have that imagination or belief. First of all, is they see
Mm,
people like selling courses, they instantly think, oh, that's a scam when they haven't even tried it themselves. They see like people making tons of money, they're like, oh, he must be doing some illegal stuff or selling a course. Like it's all these mentalities. I think it's all about the mentality for like 90% of it, honestly. I've always been pretty imaginative kid, and I think when I got older, it kind of switched from, oh, when I'm 5 years old, like, making my own card game or whatever, it switched now where I imagine and I know I have that self-belief and I know that, these things are possible. I know that I can achieve whatever I want. Like I have no doubt in my mind that I'm gonna continue to be successful and grow the companies and everything. So yeah, I think it's probably mainly mentality, to be honest, and also something that I noticed about myself. I can only speak for myself here, but I have heard about it from other people, is I'm a pretty obsessive person. So when I pick one thing, I have one goal, I'm gonna really try and just make that happen. And I will make probably some sacrifices which might not be, the most ideal ones to make, like, sacrificing maybe some family time,
mm,
some social life, stuff like that. But for example, even with me, like I started going to the gym maybe 2 years ago, maybe almost 2 years ago, and I've only skipped like a few days. That's a pretty simple example, but whenever I have a goal, I really just hone down, and I become kind of obsessed, which again, that's also a double-edged sword. But in this case, it's a positive.
yeah, I will say one thing with the fitness thing. I love that analogy because I think like a lot of this is about kind of self accountability, and like the fitness thing is like a very tangible like outcome that you can see, right? It's like if you're doing it every day except for skipping a few days, out of the month or out of the year, it's very you can't bullshit anybody and you can't let alone bullshit yourself, right? Like that shit doesn't lie. Like your body won't lie based on what you actually do. You could tell somebody you go to the gym every day, but if you're like 20, 30 pounds overweight, probably gonna like second guess that and you're probably like not really being accountable to it. So I love the analogy there. Awesome. Yeah,
100%.
would love to kind of just like, dive deeper. Appreciate you sharing your background, just kind of like how you got involved. I think that provides a lot of context around like why you went down deep into this rabbit hole, but feel free to share whatever you feel comfortable with. Again, some of the things that you found to work really well, maybe diving into the algos around LinkedIn and stuff.
Okay, yeah, so I'll say I've been posting on LinkedIn for like 6 months plus myself. Initially I had some breaks, I was losing motivation, but then all of a sudden I had a post get like a few hundred comments, nothing crazy, but for me at the time I was like, okay, mom, we made it, I'm gonna retire you. So basically, once I had that, I realized, okay, I'm just gonna keep doing the same thing. So the reason that I'm saying that is basically you're gonna have to test a lot of different things. Like you said, the things that work for me might not work for you, but I can give you the principles and I will also get as specific as I can.
Sure.
But basically, you want to stay consistent is the first thing. So like at least 6 months of posting every day, and don't, if something isn't working for you and you've posted like the same kind of post 10 times, maybe it's time to switch it up. We want to I think there's some quote which says like being insane is doing the same thing every day and expecting a change in results. Like if we keep doing the same kind of post, it's not gonna you're really like there's 90% chance that you're gonna end up getting the same kind of results. So test a bunch of different things. So things that you could test could be the formats of the post. So this could be test short form videos, test long form videos, test carousels, test just graphics, test just text posts. And then the final format is just a normal image. So like an image of a laptop or of you, like, those personal photos that we see sometimes on our feed. So those are the main formats. That's one of the variables that you can test. The other things you can test is the type of post. So there's going to be a bunch of different, people are going to, there's millions of types of posts. Anyone can come up with a type of post, but the key ones would be, I would break it down into personal posts. I'd break it down into technical posts. So ones where so the personal would be like experiences, stories, things around that, maybe like general lessons. Technical post is going to be actionable, valuable advice. And then the last one's going to be more authoritative posts. So these case studies, um, I guess also like video testimonials, things that just show that you know what you're talking about. Now, within those types of posts, like for anyone's going to be able to make a personal post go viral. Like it doesn't matter what niche you're in. It's just within those types, you want to also break it down into market, like the actual things that you want to, the content strategy should basically consist of three different key types of people that you target through those posts. So I prefer to break it down into awareness stages. Like post types is all great, and I think that's good when you want to work out, okay, how much um am I looking to generate leads? Am I looking to build more brand awareness? Do I just want to grow my personal brand, document my journey? If you're documenting your journey, you're probably going to do more personal stuff. If you're trying to generate leads, you might do more authoritative stuff. So that works for anyone. All of those types of posts will work for anyone. But how you should actually split your content in terms of the volume is the awareness stages. So it's a pretty basic marketing principle. So I break it down into three key awareness stages. So number one is people that are problem unaware. So this should be about 40% of your content, I'd say. These are people which don't know they have the problem that you're solving. So this could be you just want to bring them into your ecosystem. You could do this through more broad posts like personal posts. You could also do it through talking about the why this is important. So a lot of people don't know that LinkedIn's a great platform. So what I do if I'm targeting these pain aware people is I'll basically tell them hey, so actually you can use LinkedIn to achieve this dream outcome, and then I'll also get into, some value or talk about what they can do on a high level. The next awareness stage is problem aware, or yeah, pain aware. So that's going to be like 35% of your content. So a little less than the pay than the problem unaware. And the problem unaware should be you should be posting the most of that, because this is split by how many people are in each stage. So as we get further down and more sophisticated in the buyer level, there's going to be less people at that level. So for the pain aware people, these are people which know the problem exists. So these are people which they know LinkedIn's important. Maybe they're struggling to generate leads, maybe they're struggling to sign clients. That's where you basically just need to make them aware that your solution exists, and also try and provide value in a way that maybe they can actually see some results and fix some of the problem through your content. So a more specific example would be, I would actually make specific content going over, okay, so basically you know that LinkedIn's important, but you haven't started building your personal brand. Here's the first 5 steps you can take, for example. And then the final awareness stage is solution aware. So this should be the least amount of your content, but you definitely still want to integrate it. This is about 25% of your content. So it goes 40%, 35%, 25%. This is people which are actively searching for solutions, and they know that solutions out there exist. In this case, rather than talking about why the mechanism works as a whole, so why just LinkedIn is important, you need to be talking about why is your mechanism, why is your offer better than the other solutions, why is your offer the one that's going to get them to their dream outcome. So this is where you might post more of that authoritative content. I post case studies talking about, oh, how this SaaS client went from 1 to 3 demos a week to like 600 demos in a month. So this is going to be that content which really answers why the prospect should go to you. And usually also in this type of content, I will just mention, you want to have call to actions at the end that allow people to easily uh, go down into your funnel pretty much. So a lot of the time, I'll have a link saying book a call with me if you want similar results. And then I'll just put a link in there. Side note, links usually don't work well in LinkedIn posts. So something you want to do is basically after a couple hours of posting, that's then when you go in, edit the post, and then you put the link in
Mm,
afterwards. Because
okay.
otherwise the algorithm doesn't like it, because any social media algorithm pretty much makes money from advertisers, or most of their money from advertisers. So their goal is to keep people on the platform for the longest they can. So if we're sending them to third-party websites, LinkedIn isn't going to like that. And
Mm,
we're basically losing them out on money. So what LinkedIn actually cares about, and this is going to get into more of the algorithm, is they care about hover time. I've found that that's basically like the number one metric. So it's like retention on YouTube. It's basically
yeah.
how much time do they spend on that post, just stop, they've stopped scrolling, they're on the post. So there's a few ways that you can increase hover time and that you can take advantage of that. One of the best ways to do that is by adding images, because it will just take up more of the screen. And if you add an image which has like a complex workflow and stuff, so I'll give you an example. A lot of the time I have AI automation clients. You were talking about make.com. So I have a lot of AI automation agency clients. And what we do is we give away workflows, or we explain the workflows. When we add an image of like a super complex workflow with like 20 steps, people are like, they go on the image, they zoom in, they're trying to
Mm,
work out what's going on, they read the post. So that's like something which is doing super well on LinkedIn, is flowcharts or automations. Also just like high quality graphics are doing super well right now. What I've noticed is carousels, I don't see them as much. Maybe it's just me, but I don't see them as much. What I've been seeing is just single static images are performing super well. I used to do, like, I had a lead magnet giveaway post get like 3,000 comments a couple months back. And what we did was I basically was giving away a video, and the media that I attached to the post was a sped up version of that video. So you can't understand what's going on, but it conveys the fact, some of the stuff that's going on and builds a bunch of curiosity. That doesn't work as well right now. What I found now is even with lead magnet posts, literally just screenshots or images are doing super well. So for one client, we got over 7,000 comments. That's probably, and none of those were him replying to the comments. It was all like 7,000 people coming to that post. That's probably the biggest giveaway post I've ever seen on LinkedIn. So, I mean, we'll see if somebody's seen a big one, but that's the biggest one we ever made, biggest one I've ever seen on the platform. And all we did there was we had a screenshot of his calendar and we were basically giving away a GTM playbook. I can't share who that is because
Sure.
I'm under NDA, but it's it's been like static images are working super well.
Very cool. Yeah, lots of great nuggets in there. Thank you so much for sharing that. Um, how about, I mean, I guess you kind of pointed out a few things that are working well right now, like in your experience playing around with this. Uh, yeah, I've got kind of like two questions. I guess like first of all, specific to LinkedIn, what are some of the things that has worked in the past? And maybe those are like the sped up videos that you were mentioning, but like doesn't really work well now. And like how often are you noticing that you kind of like are switching things up to make sure that you stay on top of the changes of the algorithm as well? Like, is it happening like, every few months, or is it and how do you kind of deduce that personally? Like, how do you, and yeah, I'll stop
Yeah,
there.
so first of all, like what worked in the past. I mean, yeah, so those sped up videos is an example of one format. I would say like they still work. It's just I don't know. I came up with that for maybe people did that format before, but I didn't see it. I just decided, hey, why not? I'm gonna speed up this video
Sure.
and maybe it will look nice. And we did that, and we were getting like I did it for myself. Then I just copied that playbook for clients who were getting 1,000 comments like it's nothing, every post. So I guess that's one of the formats. Apart from that, I would say that most stuff, like the algorithm doesn't change too much. Like fundamentally, it doesn't really change. Now, the platform itself, I think they removed the video feed from mobile. So I'm not 100% sure. Like, don't quote me on this because short form video isn't a massive part of what we do. But on LinkedIn, I believe short form video has been like the amount of impressions that you get from it has decreased significantly. So that's something which isn't is still viable. I would still tell people test every single format, test like a bunch of different types of talking about a bunch of different types of topics still within your niche. So I'll actually give you an example. So I was working with this, I took on a client who was targeting ecom brands. This is like the hardest niche on LinkedIn
Sure.
because you don't really say like, oh, I'm in the ecom brand industry. Like it's a bit of a hard niche to target. So I literally told him when we took him on, I was like, hey, I don't know if we're going to be able to get results. Like, I don't want you to have any expectations. I'm going to do my best. So, first couple of weeks, I was in this testing phase. If it's a whole new niche, if you've never posted content before, I'm basically posting like 2 to 3 lead magnets or giveaways per week. Because once we work out a format that works for those, we can just pump those out consistently, like 1 to 2 times a week. And then we can create similar content alongside it, but lead magnets is probably one of the number one drivers for results right now. That's probably like that has
Yeah.
to be attributed to like 80% of my growth. So I would just first of all work out a lead magnet which is working for you guys. Like that's the first type of post which you really want to master. Personal stories are great, case studies are great, but if you can work out a lead magnet, those are going to bring you like thousands of people to your profile and drive a bunch of traffic to your funnel in a super short period of time. So that's like the highest leverage thing that you can do. So what I was testing is I was testing giving away documents. I was testing giving away like static ad templates. I was testing giving away a bunch of different stuff. I was also testing like sometimes I would talk about creatives, sometimes I would talk about reducing CPM, I would talk about international expansion, all these different kind of e-commerce topics just to see what do people care about.
Sure.
Because at the end of the day, like people might need something, but if they don't want it, you're not going to be able to sell them on it. So we need to sell them. Sometimes we have to sell them what they want or bring them into the funnel through what they want, and then later on show them, reveal their pain points. They can self-identify, and then we sell them onto it. So what we found was working and what's doing super well right now for that e-commerce client is AI UGC. Now,
Mm,
it's not 100% related to his service. Like he does ad creatives and paid ads. So it's a pretty like commoditized service. But what we realized is AI UGC is like super trending right now. I mean, if you pull up Google Trends and search it up, I have no doubt that the graph is going to be, exponential, just something completely absurd. So we basically looked at the trending topics right now. I looked at stuff on Twitter in that space. So I searched up like ecom brands, I searched up like UGC. I consistently saw these tweets around AI UGC just going mega viral. And a lot of the time on other platforms, like LinkedIn's kind of a late platform a lot of the time. People aren't super innovative. People, it's just kind of been a more professional platform, more just focused on finding jobs and stuff like that. But we're slowly moving away from that. But I basically saw on Twitter this stuff is trending. You can look at Google Trends. This stuff is going up. So I was like, okay, how about we just launch a lead magnet where we give away an AI UGC strategy? And I based it off a
mm,
viral Twitter post I saw. And previously, our lead magnets probably hadn't gotten more than 30 comments, which is pretty miserable. Our
yeah.
first AI UGC lead magnet got over 4,000 comments, which is, amazing. So we did that again. We got another 2,000 comments, and then we just did another AI UGC lead magnet. We got like 3,000 plus comments. So I think it's also about working out what content attracts those people. It can be, kind of adjacent topics. It can be kind of adjacent, yeah, adjacent topics. It doesn't have to be exactly what you offer, but if it attracts your target market, then from there you can nurture and then sell them onto basically onto your offer. I already went down the awareness stages, but you can basically bring them down the awareness stages, increase their sophistication.
Got it. Super interesting. As we're kind of rounding up on time here, would just kind of love to, get, and you shared a lot of great things, and I think a lot of this makes total sense. And I feel like you're not necessarily like, you're not necessarily like reinventing the wheel or sharing things that some of these people don't know, right? It's just that you are, uh, if I think the youth plays into this, man. I think like you don't have an ego about it. Like I think that's what a lot of it comes down to is like a lot of these people in their later 20s to 30s are just scared. They're scared about how it's their content will be perceived. You mentioned about like posting the same thing over and over again, trying to expect different results. And it's like, yeah, you might be posting something that adheres to your brand guide, but it's not getting you the ROI in terms of like tangible presence that LinkedIn can do in terms of like maximizing sales pipeline, right? And I think that's so interesting as how you're leveraging it. I did have a question though. Go ahead. You had something to say?
I was just gonna say, like, I think when I try to be super clever and creative, and I'm like, oh my God, this LinkedIn post is amazing. Like, I think you probably know what I'm feeling like with marketing campaigns. You're just like, oh, this is so clever that this is amazing. It just it usually just completely flops. What I've noticed is when the thing that I do the best is just when I'm just naturally just writing a LinkedIn post. I'm not trying to overly plan it. I'm not trying to do
Yeah,
some crazy like analysis, but I just yeah, exactly. I'm not reinventing the wheel. I don't try and be smarter than everyone else. I
yeah,
think clarity over cleverness.
yeah. Which is funny, man. But that is the catch 22 of it all. It's like I think a lot of maybe it's just my personal curiosity is just around human behavior. And I think at the end of the day, people want to feel special and unique and like validate their existence. So that's why they have to come up with something that feels clever versus clarity. I love that idea though. last question here, allow you to move on, but would just be on, you mentioned, taking an idea from Twitter that you saw that was trending and then applying it to LinkedIn. I agree with you that LinkedIn is kind of it's the older people's platform, but I think that is what kind of like what presents the opportunity for somebody like you to disrupt it. Um, how much are you looking at other platforms, whether it is Twitter, TikTok, or YouTube, or Instagram? Like, and are there other social platforms that you think do carry over well to LinkedIn in terms of like delivering results?
Number one is Twitter because it's
Yeah.
text based.
Yeah.
I have two sources when I'm looking at content which has performed well before, and that's YouTube and that's Twitter because those are the two platforms which have the biggest overlap in audience, and also
Makes
the
sense.
format, at least on Twitter, is very similar to LinkedIn. Usually what when I'm this is like when I'm in the testing phase and I'm just trying to work out, I would say you go to LinkedIn and I would literally just like see what, I'll test tons of, I've already said this, but test a bunch of different formats, test a bunch of different types of posts, see what works. And then during that testing phase, like look at other platforms, look at what's already worked at other platforms. You don't have to reinvent the wheel. Look on Twitter, search for, keywords that are related to your post, related to your business. Search them on YouTube, search them on Twitter, see what comes up, see what's done well. Ideally, within the last like 6 months, even better if it's like in the last few days. But I would just see during that testing phase, it's a big part of it is just, okay, we really want to see what's working, right? So the best way is to just even better than going to other platforms. If you see other people on LinkedIn doing well, then you can repurpose, you can look at what they've done and repurpose that. Although in that case, it usually is a bit less, the audience is a bit less receptive to it because they've
Yeah.
seen it before. If it's on Twitter, like what we were doing is I saw this tweet for the AI UGC. I saw this tweet go viral like 11 hours ago. It had like hundreds of thousands of views. I was like, okay. And it was about like a new AI tool. So that's like a super non-evergreen, just short-term trending topic. I took that post and I transformed it into a LinkedIn giveaway, posted it straight away. So I'd also make sure that you look at the timeline. Is it
Mhm.
evergreen or is it
Sure.
short term?
Yeah. That's a good note. One more question here, is just, what does your tech stack look like? Like, what are you using to schedule things out, create the content that you're creating, even you feel free to plug your own tool now that you just launched, in terms of like what that does. But yeah, like how are you trying how do you generate the content that you're trying to test, right? Because I think a lot of people just end up thinking like, I'm gonna do photos, right? Or like they're gonna do videos, and then they get stuck on, all right, I gotta learn all this stuff. And they think about like they think about like the long-winded version of like, I gotta do 100 videos, so I gotta subscribe to this thing and blah blah blah. But what's kind of like, yeah, your go-to tech stack for like testing this different content types where you can just spit out quickly, and it's
I use
not
two
necessarily
tools.
about
I
like,
use two tools,
sure,
like only two tools. One of them is Notion, and the other one is Phantom Writer, which is my own tool. I actually use it. Like I use it to draft posts. I use it
got it.
to come up with ideas. I genuinely had it as an internal tool, and now we're just like, hey, you guys can find it valuable too. So, um, I would recommend using Notion to manage the content
Hmm,
creation. So I kind of have a pipeline and it's like a pipeline type of thing in Notion where it says not started, in progress, and then if I'm working with a client, it will have a column for need to approve so that then it can approve the post. If I'm not working with a client, it's just for myself, it will just say ready to post. So I can kind of move posts along that. And then obviously I have a column for posted so that I can discard the post. But Notion for managing the content engine or calendar, and then Phantom Writer for generating the posts, coming up with ideas, creating lead magnet posts as well. We just launched a specific feature for that, but you can try it for free. Like you can literally just see other posts doing well, and then before you even pay for anything. So you can get some inbound leads, go viral before you even have to pay for the app.
got it. Very cool. Well, I want to say thank you so much for sharing your story, and your journey is definitely super interesting for me, and I'm sure a lot of our listeners will find it too. Um, I'll catch up with you, but I'll provide your contact details for anybody that's curious to working with you potentially or booking a meeting with you.
Perfect. I appreciate you, inviting me on. It's been a great time.
Of course, thank you.